Hi there, and welcome to the IBAC Tech Trek podcast, where we explore the outer reaches of insurance technology. I'm Tom Reid, your science officer on this journey, and beaming aboard to join me today is Brett Fawbert, CIO at Aviva Canada. Hey, Brett, how's it going?
Yeah, Tom. Well, thanks. Good to see you.
Yeah, awesome. So, Brett, before we move into the intense part of this podcast, maybe would give a quick bio on yourself. This isn't your first journey to work at Aviva in Canada. Can you give us a bit of a history on yourself and how you came to be sitting in the chair you are in today?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Aviva 26 years, I think now, in a variety of roles. I'm a qualified underwriter, as well as, verging into the beyond reaches of technology over the years. But came out to Canada back in 2016 when we acquired the RBC business, and I ran the integration of that for about 2 years. And then I was the Chief Information Officer for the last 8 or 9 months before I had to travel back to the UK. My dad was unwell at the point. And ever since I got back, I thought, what am I doing? We should be back in Canada. So myself, my wife and the 4 kids, it's taken us best part of 5 years, I think, to get back. But delighted to be back here, running the technology function. And, a lot to do, but very challenging and motivating at the same time.
Fantastic. Well, as someone who worked with you in years gone past, I'm glad to have you back in Canada. So welcome back. Right. So Aviva, a few years back, started on the journey with Guidewire, put that in place with RBC, if memory serves. So where are you with the main broker operations side of Aviva Canada in terms of your back office system?
Well, I mean, when I was here before, we put Guidewire in for RBC. And at that point, I think we're planning to do the PI book. And with the acquisition, turned our attention to moving Guidewire onto the RBC first. And nothing's been done since then. We've stalled quite a bit of time. We then had another go at it a few years ago. And then that was put to one side with a CIO change. But now I'm back, we're absolutely committed to make that change. And for me, it's all about experience for the brokers. The more we can get consistency and make that ease of doing business, everyone benefits from it. It enables growth, enables good service for our customers. And we're really committed to do that, both for our PI and our commercial books. But we're starting the journey now on PI. We're already doing some inception activity on that, but we're targeting to kick that program off from the turn of the year. And hopefully early part of 26, we'll be able to move that across into Guidewire, which is going to be a target system.
So that's great that you're moving to Guidewire. As you said, you're at the early part of that journey. So I might be asking you to sort of go out on a limb here, but when you have Guidewire implemented, let's talk about personal insurance to start off with. What do you think having Guidewire running Aviva's systems would do to help a broker's ability to grow their business as likely as well as Aviva's business? But what do you see that Guidewire bring to the table for brokers' growth?
Well, I think first off, when we started this, and I've been back now for just about a year. It's hard to believe. But one of the first things I did was to make sure that we rebuilt the team. Right? And that team consists with a combination of industry talent that's worked in other places and knows what good looks like. Strengthening our business capability through those business MDs to make sure that we've got the right business experience that can help us get the right outcome, and upskilling our people, because to be honest, we've not really invested in technology here in Aviva for the last 4 or 5 years. So that was the first focus. The kind of core outcome that we want to aim for is truly making it easier to work with Aviva, because I hear from Ben Ritchie, who runs the distribution team, and a number of brokers that I talk to, Steve Errol, for example, it's really difficult at the moment to work with Aviva. And whilst we're good to work with, a big carrier, good products, people will just get a bit frustrated and that'll just turn their attention to another one over time. So we want to make sure we quickly get that ease of doing business back on as a kind of North Star. And for me, that's all about connectivity standards. I'm back in the CSIO board. We're really committed to those standards. I want to make sure as well that we make the broader experience seamless. Things like eDocs, things like self-serve. We may well see brokers potentially over the next few years looking at some of those lower value transactions and saying, do we want our customer to just do that directly with the carrier? So we're thinking about future agenda items as much as the here and now. And maybe there'll be a point where, the customer of the broker can directly make changes like, payment date, just basic stuff like that. So we are really trying to make sure that we cater for the here, but also the future, because the time we go live, it's going to be, 18 months or so before we get this across the line, and the world will have changed by then. So we're always going to have one eye on the future as well as the problems that we face today.
Awesome. Well, you've just answered two of my questions in one, because I was going to ask you about what you're doing that improves a broker's client experience, but I think you've already hit the nail on the head. There are a lot of people, policyholders, who not only don't mind doing some things themselves, actually want to do some things themselves, which has the knock-on impact of freeing up brokers' time so that they can spend more time with clients or time with more clients, or however they want to deploy that extra time with not only that drives better client service, but typically will also drive some growth. So,
and there's other things for me, Tom, there. We're a big organisation. We've got a big footprint in the UK as well. And there's stuff there that I think we can provide brokers that they might struggle themselves, particularly, if you're kind of on the smaller side in terms of having the insight or the bandwidth to be able to do. So some things that are springing to mind when I've been talking to Ben about that is, where are we on kind of proper training, product training around Aviva? Can we do that much more e-training and really make that intuitive, particularly if you look at how AI might change some of that going forward, looking at things like security. I hear a lot, and we're involved a lot in a number of brokers that have security incidents. And we know when brokers get hit, we've got a lot of security out there that tracks all our third and fourth parties. And can we help brokers improve the security awareness? Can we help them improve their security posture? So we do third-party information security assessments, and maybe that's something that we can help brokers just make sure they're better protected going forward. So there's a number of things I think that are just not really pure technology in terms of connectivity that I think we can bring to the party over the next year or two.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, I've worked in big organizations most of my life, and you get used to having colleagues who have, diverse skill sets. The vast majority of brokerages outside of the hubs and broker links and whatnot, are led by a team of one or a team of two or three, who don't have all of those skill sets, and having partners who can bring some of these, highly technical skills to the table that wouldn't ordinarily be available to a broker. That can only be a positive thing.
Yeah. So we're trying to think about a whole range of, activities that we can help brokers with going forward.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. So, I do want to get back to the subject of connectivity, and you, as you said, you sit now, or again, on the CSIO board. So IBAC recently brought a initiative to a CSIO, which CSIO took on, which is sharing the APIs that Wawanisa spent some time creating. So there's a group of carriers who are looking at that, or participating under CSIO's leadership to take those APIs and then use them in a common way so that connectivity becomes easier. Can I get, as both the CIO of Aviva and a board member of CSIO, can I get your thoughts around that initiative and where you see it going?
Look, I think Wawa done a great job there. Some great work. And to be fair, when you step back and look at it, a standards-based approach, there's no real differentiator there between carriers. The data drives the value, not the standardization. So maybe at one point there was a bunch of people nervous about it, but I think Cam Makowski, who's in there now, are definitely doing the right thing, and we're definitely up for collaborating on that as we go forward. The thing for me here is that we can probably take that further. One thing I was talking to my engineering team about was, is there a testing suite that we could develop that gives us, commonality rather than us all doing our own thing? Maybe there's areas like that we can collaborate much further on. So we're definitely keen on exploring that in more detail, but, all credit to Wawa that did that in the first place. And having that, making sure that we've got those conformance to the standards, it just provides a more consistent experience for brokers. So we're all going to win in the end.
Yeah, and I think your point about the actual data coming across the pipes driving the value or the competitive advantage from a carrier and broker perspective is correct. Actually, the actual movement of said data, which is what the standards govern, it's just plumbing, right? It doesn't.
Exactly.
As long as everybody does that essentially the same way, it doesn't matter. But what you get through that pipe is the important part. What that pipe looks like or how it operates is irrelevant and should, in fact, be as common as possible to reduce costs and complexity for everybody.
Yeah, and that's why when we've talked about it in terms of testing, is there a way in which we can do some common test, approach to that as well, which would just help us, because then maybe that would drive you more standardization if you get some test framework that you're trying to conform to. So it's just some stuff that we've been talking about with the team over the last month or two that I'll maybe bring up in the next CSIO board. There's one before the end of the year, so I'll do that. But so we're definitely up for enhancing that broker experience, making it easier to do business with us all, and we can focus on that, USP around how we harvest the data and what we do with the data, which, to your point, is the real value add for us.
Yeah. So there is I think when you bring this up, you'll find there's actually a proposal that IBAC put forward, as a matter of fact, that is on CSIO's 3-year roadmap, which is, I believe we called it a testing sandbox. So an industry level approach that would probably be hosted, details TBD, be hosted by CSIO. So every carrier's API endpoints would sit there. So essentially any CSIO blessed vendor could come and do a large part of their testing essentially automatically before they went and did the final bits with the individual carriers. And the reason that IBAC brought that forward, the reason I'm personally a big fan of it, is that it's a bit of a hurdle right now from a vendor's perspective. Not if you're Applied or Arcturus, because they have huge customer bases that gets the attention of carriers, and therefore you put your resources against it. But for the vast majority of the smaller vendors that are doing really cool new things that support brokers, it's very difficult for them to get the attention of a carrier, because the first question is, what's the business case? How many clients do you have? How does that help the carrier? Because I know as a carrier, I'm going to have to invest X number of person months of effort of my own that could be doing something else that does add value. And yet, you don't have, you have a small number of clients or don't have any clients. You're just a startup. So a lot of that real innovation gets stifled because there isn't this kind of automated, consistent testing that can get, that can knock that hurdle down.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we used to really support that. It was funny. I was sitting down. Dennis Dalmas, who looks after engineering for me. You'd have known Dennis from not just Northbridge recently, but from Aviva when we all worked here in the past. We were talking to Theo at Actuarius yesterday. And one thing we got into was the fact that we used to provide model office test environments for brokers to be able to use. And that would help us look at, the quality of the quote success, etc. And where we're, where's the deviation there? Are we within 1% or 20%? What do we need to do to try and improve that? And that was ways in which we could get smaller brokers to help kind of come in and try that model office environment to see if we could really improve and help them kind of start to use the capability going forward. It's stuff like that I think we've just lost our way on. We've decommissioned all them over the years through previous leadership changes, and we're keen to get that sort of stuff back. So when we were talking about that yesterday, that's when we had a further conversation about what do we do about the sandbox, whatever it is that you called it there. So definitely we're up for having a conversation in terms of making that easier and making it more consistent.
Okay, so Brett, it sounds like you've been quite active in terms of getting broker input to future tech development plans for Aviva, which is great. I'm interested in knowing how important is input from the broker associations themselves into your development roadmap.
Well, it's funny, we talked about that as part of the PI modernisation initiative we're about to start, because we need to make sure we've got a real connection in there to make sure we're doing the right thing. That input is extremely important to us. It's almost like a North Star. I mentioned that before, but making sure that those development plans and roadmaps, where we're heading, we want to be at the forefront of that, and get back to where we ought to be as a big carrier and an important insurer in this marketplace. So we've done that in the past, and actually we were at the forefront of it probably 6 years ago or something like that, I think it was. And Tom, you were here at the time when we kicked off Trailblazer, and that was really championing. I think we were the first carrier that championed that broker connectivity, and we did that through quick wins or something. I remember there was a set of things that we developed when you were here in Aviva, and
it was called quick wins. That's what it was called. Yep,
that's right, exactly. So we want to get back, and the good thing is some of the team that we had at that point have managed to entice back to Aviva. But we know that that's fundamental in terms of making it this successful. And we were looking over the last couple of weeks at that as part of the modernisation we want to do in that PI book for our brokers. And there's about 30 million transactions still going through that. So at least we know what we built is still working. But yeah, I think for us, we know that's absolutely fundamental. So being part of that, taking that broker association feedback, in terms of where we go and how we do it, it's going to be a real core part of how we evolve and develop ourselves going forward. So we'll do that hand in hand.
Well, I can say that's great news. And then obviously Wellman-East has been committed to this for a while. They, if memory serves, they kind of followed Aviva's lead back in those 2016, 2017, 2018 days. And then they've, continued that on. Having you guys catch up would be fantastic. There's a few other key carriers that have done development in that space, Economical, SGI. From a broker's perspective, brokers need a critical mass of carriers to be doing connectivity in essentially this, the same way, such that their vendors are able to deploy that data into their system in a way that makes that workflow really consistent and really straightforward. So they're not spending all their time on grunt, double entry kind of non-value add tasks. So having a strong, important carrier like Aviva at the table is nothing but good news to my ears.
Yeah, no, I'm massively committed to it. So, more to come on that as we start to share our PI modernisation plans. As I said, we're really keen to get that into execution from the turn of the year. I'll work with Ben as well when he's out on the road to try and talk to as many brokers as I can in terms of what that's going to look and feel like. And again, with the associations, get their input in terms of making sure we're heading in the right direction with that. So, hopefully a year from now, there'll be a different sentiment from our brokers in terms of Aviva and how we're supporting them.
The world of insurance is changing because the world of tech is changing. Join us on the journey at ibactech.ca.